Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a wonderful week and you're ready for another crazy weekend. So, what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, of course, the Reform UK vetting process, which I'm going to show you a very interesting video in just a moment, where James O'Brien goes through a few of the problems within Nigel Farage's vetting process. The real Reform UK, the gas situation with gas, tax cuts, Bernie Sanders versus AI, and finally a story on Donald Trump living till the year, well, first one, which is, of course, James O'Brien pointing out some of the flaws within Nigel Farage's Reform UK vetting process. Have a listen.
Listen, let me begin with a joke.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
They announced their candidates in Scotland yesterday.
So
not yet 24 hours.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be funny if the people they announced turned out to include an alleged racist, an alleged crook, and an alleged... what have we got? Got an alleged racist, an alleged crook, and an alleged Tommy Robinson fan.
Well, one candidate has as a Holyrood candidate. Stuart Niven was announced as Reform's Dundee City West candidate, as you heard yesterday afternoon.
Yes.
But just hours later, allegations have emerged about his financial conduct.
What?
He was one of 73 hopefuls set out for the party. The Herald has reported he has been banned from acting as a company director for 7 years after allegedly diverting thousands of pounds from a taxpayer-backed COVID loan into his personal account.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that somebody who's associated with Reform UK could allegedly be involved in some sort of dodgy tax deals.
Alleged that he applied for a bounce-back loan of £50,000 in November of 2020 and received the taxpayer support the next day, and that the funds allegedly were then transferred to his personal account. The former paratrooper has said that the money was lost in an investment. A spokesperson for Reform said we take allegations like this very seriously.
So the money was not resting in his account, like the Father Ted excuse.
An investigation's underway and they're currently suspended.
So, I mean, do we know how the Herald could find this out in a matter of minutes, while the brilliant, first-class, absolutely A-grade vetting system that Nigel Farage keeps boasting about failed to unearth this allegation?
Well, they found it on Companies House, this information.
Hard, isn't it? How does one access Companies House records, Henry Riley?
Well, I've done so. You just sort of put the name in and say Companies House for this bit of... And
then it emerges that he has faced the penalty you described. So the Reform UK vetting does not extend to Googling.
Well, in this one, this was missed. There are other cases, as you referenced, but before I tell you about them, James, our Scotland political editor, Gina Davison, did speak with the Reform leader in Scotland, Malcolm Offord, who had this to say about vetting.
And so you're convinced then that over the next few weeks, as people start to have a look at your candidates, that you're not going to have any horror stories thrown up as your party has had in the past?
So we've done a lot of vetting, and obviously for a new party...
What vetting? I'd love to know what the vetting process is. I can imagine something like, are you dodgy? And they're like, well, I'm applying to be a member of Reform UK. And they're, yeah, that's a stupid question. Welcome aboard.
To field 73 candidates in short order is a mammoth task. We've done that. We've done a lot of vetting. I can't predict whether there might be something pops out the woodwork, but right now we're happy that we've done the vetting. So by definition, they're going to be interesting people.
You said that.
I like how he described them as interesting people. They're going to be interesting people. People with interesting pasts and maybe interesting presence as well. People who've posted interesting things on social media. People who've had interesting business deals. Maybe spent some time in an interesting prison.
The word vetting a lot there, and you know,
and interesting.
Let's not be unkind. Let's just take our eye off the next few months, shall we? Mm-hmm. And just have a look at the next few minutes in the aftermath of that interview yesterday about how good their vetting was. So we've got one who stands accused of you're
profiting from a COVID bounce-back loan.
Thank you. Yeah,
is the allegation.
Legal training more recently than I have. What else did I say? An alleged crook, an alleged racist. Have we got an alleged racist by any chance?
Well, there is one candidate, a former Tory councillor, now a Reform candidate.
Politician, which was all.
Once again, they've fallen down with the idea that don't worry, these people are not politicians, are not former politicians. These are people, who work all day, people who come from different sections of society, but not politicians, but yes, an ex-Tory.
Already the excuse that Malcolm Offord seemed to be offering up for the fact that the vetting would be so successful that loads of people did come out of the woodwork with dodgy histories.
Yes, they have been a politician, a Conservative councillor who was at one point censured for aggressive behaviour, called Humza Yousaf, the former First Minister of Scotland, a grandstanding Islamist moron.
Right.
Apologies, some of these are quite offensive, just to put them out there. A Brown FM, which is First Minister, and seemingly passed vetting to become a Reform UK candidate. Also said at one point he wanted a home.
You know, this sort of language, you would imagine it's gold to somebody in Reform UK. You know, this would be, you'd actually pass the vetting process by engaging in this type of behaviour. You know, belligerent and racist. It seems to be, you know, the requirement to be a candidate for Reform. But unfortunately, she was rejected after they discovered this. So there's still an opportunity for her to join maybe Restore Britain.
Holy War. He was not British. Linda Holt, who is a taxi firm owner, elected as a Conservative councillor back in 2017, former deputy leader of the Tories on Fife Council, not anymore, need to make that point. But she was not re-elected in 2022. But at one point there was a standards investigation into, quotes, aggressive and disrespectful behaviour.
How do you know all this?
This is all this is all in the public domain if you search the name of the candidate.
So again, the vetting. Let's just listen to Malcolm Offord again, and just the first bit of that clip, the last clip that we played, and just count how many times he uses the word vetting while he's talking to our Scottish editor Gina.
So we've done a lot of vetting, and obviously for a new party to field 73 candidates in short order is a mammoth task. We've done that. We've done a lot of vetting. I can't predict whether there might be something pops out the woodwork, but right now we're happy that we've done the vetting. This will be an interesting group of people who've done interesting things in the past. These are not professional politicians. 80% of those have never been politicians before. So by definition, they're going to be interesting people.
Okay. So what happens if you Google this person about whom they've done a lot of vetting?
Well, you get these comments about the case of the conduct investigation, and also if you look at the social media, you can see the comments about Islamist moron. I do see Malcolm Offord on
like they don't ask these people, have you written something in the past that could be a problem for us in the present? They don't actually even ask these people. But once again, they can't have a strict vetting process because then nobody would join Reform. Because Reform is a party of very dodgy individuals. So of course you're going to have an open door policy when it comes to welcoming people in. You can have a proper vetting process because then there'll be nobody joining the frigging party. Because once again, it's like saying, you know, we're the Green Party. If the Green Party said we don't want people on the left or we don't want environmentalists join, well then there'll be nobody joining.
No,
but that's what vetting's for.
I don't know the context.
You don't just vet people on what they've done since you became a candidate. Otherwise.
This has to be the most insane part of all of this. Yeah, she said those things before she became a candidate, but that's the point of a vetting process. Like, they don't even know what a vetting process is. The vetting process is supposed to check on what people did or said before they became a candidate, not after. Like, was there some sort of post-vetting process as well?
You would never vet anybody because...
He says, I'm very clear we've done a good vetting process. I don't know the context in which she made the remarks. Right. I don't know when she made the comments.
And, I don't know, should we go for the hat-trick?
Well, there's another candidate, Senga Beresford, who offered support for Tommy Robinson and called for Muslims to be deported.
Well, all of them?
Well, it was a sort of general term. She, at one point... was supportive of,
and this is the strange one, and like the others are pretty strange, but this is a really strange one because Tommy Robinson is a persona non grata in Reform UK. Nigel Farage wants nothing to do with him, and rightly so. So why are people who are hugely supportive of Tommy Robinson joining Reform? I think it's maybe the only thing I can come to, the only solution I can come to, or conclusion I should say, is that there was nowhere else for them to go. Like they were going, maybe we could join UKIP, but UKIP are a bit of a joke. Maybe we could join the Heritage Party, but they're a bit of a joke. So now that Rupert Lowe has his Restore Britain, I think some of these people who are supporters of Tommy Robinson will jump on board that, which could be a sort of blessing in disguise for Nigel Farage, because the sort of trash, like we have the trash going from the Conservative Party to Reform, and then we're going to see the even more embedded trash go from Reform to Restore Britain. People who are beyond the pale will go to Restore Britain. So I think that's what we're going to see. Which could actually be a bit of a win for Nigel Farage, because then he can present himself as a more mainstream party. Not that he is, not that his party is mainstream, but he can sort of present himself more in that way. Look, we don't have any racists or Tommy Robinson fans or extremists in our party. They're all gone to Restore Britain. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Didn't up the Farage also call us Welsh people foreign speakers today, or something? Jesus Christ, I'm ill for a day and I missed the scandal. Yes, he did. He described Welsh as a foreign language. People speaking a foreign language, and obviously he was talking about Wales there. Viper Scott, thank you for that comment. 37 months. Be charged under Scottish law as a hate crime max for those comments. Oh, that'll be... Well, she's no longer now a problem for Nigel Farage, so if she does go to jail, he'll be able to come out and say, it had nothing to do with me. She was kicked out as soon as we discovered it. Well, after somebody else told us, because our vetting process failed.
The rally in London, she said, I'm behind you all the way. That's to Tommy Robinson. She also backed deporting Muslims after responding to a post on X made by the far-right group Britain First, where she said they posted, in the UK, Muslims are demanding that Sharia law is implemented. I demand we deport the lot of them. Who's with me? And Beresford replied, me. Reform have told the Record in Scotland they are aware of the comments, which they say are not criminal.
Right. Well, that's a relief.
It's like, they're not criminal, okay? She hasn't broken the law. So is she going to be rejected?
So that's someone else they vetted.
Yeah.
Okay.
One more Scotland story.
So, no, quick word on Yaxley Lennon, of course, because the things that he's currently being convicted for include, I think, immigration offences, mortgage fraud, assault, contempt of court. I mean, it's quite a long list, but, up with that sort of thing.
You're right there to say there have been assault and mortgage fraud criminal convictions.
So we got the full hat trick there. We've got an alleged crook, an alleged racist, and an alleged Tommy Robinson fan. They did, hang on, I quote the fella.
Sorry.
They did a lot of vetting. We did a lot of vetting.
A lot of vetting.
A lot of vetting. A lot of vetting, as the late, great Cilla Black might have said. On you go.
Or Malcolm Offord. Staying with Scotland, James, before the candidates were announced, Pochin was there, who's the MP for Runcorn and Helsby.
I hope there weren't any brown faces in the room.
It was...
Yes, let's hope there weren't any brown faces in the room, because if Sarah Pochin's seen them, she'd be extremely upset.
Described as a bizarre speech, because at one point her auto cue went off. Let me play you a little bit of what happened, James.
I wanted very much to come up and be part of this conference today. Oh, my auto cue's frozen. And do you know what? The funny thing is about my auto cue freezing is my chief of staff and David Ball will go into a complete panic, because once I start to ad-lib, the press have a field day. In fact, we were talking about the reform tartan then, weren't we, whilst I'm just waiting for my auto cue. And I really wanted to come on in a reform tartan burqa, but it apparently I just wasn't allowed. Do you know what? One day, let's have one of these events that aren't live streamed, and we'll do it. We'll do all the naughty stuff. We'll do all the bits that have gone wrong and all the effing and jeffing when we do our pieces to camera and all the rest.
She's not supposed to say this out loud. She's not supposed to say, Christ, you should hear how racist we are when the cameras aren't here. She's not supposed to say that out loud, is she?
I think it's fair to say she was saying that they get very worried when there's no auto cue. The Labour Party said it took less than 30 seconds for Sarah Pochin to start making jokes about Muslims after her auto cue broke.
Well, the crowd liked it.
Of course the crowd liked it, because she's pandering to the crowd. But she probably believes these things as well. Oh my goodness. So that's Reform UK, attempting to win seats in Scotland, and of course... the more serious part of this, or if that wasn't serious enough, but the more serious part, of course, is that they the policies. They want to reduce the size of the Scottish Parliament. They want to reduce the powers of the devolved administration in Scotland. And of course, they want to cut taxes, not to benefit people, well, not to benefit everyone, but to benefit a small group of people, like what they want to do in the rest of the UK. Cut taxes for the rich and impose austerity. That's what they want. They are Thatcherites. They are like the Tories once again, 2.0. Oh no, she has. She has free speech. Reform tartan would have swastikas interwoven probably. I fear that Reform UK are going to do well both in Wales and Scotland. They're probably. I don't think they're going to win power, but they'll win a significant number of seats because there are racists and bigots everywhere. But these people are voting against their own interests. Even if you hate immigrants, even if you love Nigel Farage, these people are not going to be on your side. They're only on the side of the richest in society. Gareth, thank you so much for that super chat. Oh God, he mentioned Cilla Black. Immediately I thought of Blind Date, which is how Reform UK seem to choose their candidates. Well said. Exactly. I didn't see anything, so we'll just bring people on board. Can't the peasants get lower taxes? No, they cannot. So let's move on. Just sticking with this. This is a very interesting video here about, well, the woman problem within Reform UK. Have a listen.
Matt Goodwin, Reform UK candidate for Walton and Denton, think we should give young women and girls a biological reality check, urging them to have children sooner. He also recently suggested that people without children should pay more taxes. These comments are not just offensive. Quite frankly, women just don't need to hear an election and their rights. In Reform UK's manifesto, the word women only pops up 3 times, and only in the context of military servicemen and women. No mention of violence against.
So the only purpose women have in a Reform UK society is whether you join the military. That's it. Okay.
Against women and girls, the gender pay gap, or women's health. And the only time equality is mentioned is in the context of diversity, equality and inclusion, and Reform UK's plan to get rid of it.
Well, on day one, we will get rid of the Equalities Department and we will repeal the Equality Act.
The Equality...
You know, they're so enthusiastic about that. And of course, it's there to protect women and minorities. That's what it's there to protect. And of course, Reform UK want to get rid of it. And the sad reality, of course, is that there's so many women who've joined Reform and women who vote for them.
The Act protects people from discrimination based on gender, sexual orientation, their skin colour or disability. If Reform UK were to win power, the rights of everyone would be at risk, but especially the rights of women.
100% right. You know, they don't. Again, what happened to all these investigations that Nigel Farage was supposed to hold? Remember, he was talking about, well, if the government don't hold a national inquiry, we'll do one. And that was in January. Haven't heard anything since. You know, there were so many promises that Nigel Farage made. Remember, there was a Labour MP who was going to defect to Reform. We haven't heard anything about that either, unless it was something smuggled out that I hadn't seen. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our other stories. So, no, that's not what I wanted to show you. Yes, I wanted to cover this. Something in the news a few days ago about gas. And this is interesting from... Let me bring up the point that I wanted to show you. It's a little bit further on in the video. Bear with me. Okay, it's about here. If it loads.
A good handle on how much there is. And if you kind of convert the sense of what there is under the ground into numbers, have a look at this. This is basically just gas and how much gas over time has been assessed to be under the ground. So from the 1970s through to where...
Peter, thanks so much for that super chat. Tonight on TV, we have Blind Date followed by Surprise, Surprise. Well done.
Where we are now, you can see as there have been more exploration, there have been more discoveries, the total gas under the ground has gone up and up and up. I say under the ground actually, but if we just kind of break this down into what's happened to that gas, you get more of a sense of kind of the big picture. And this is the big picture. So most of that gas, the dark bit here, it's already come out of the ground. It's already been produced. It's already been burnt. It's gone.
Apologies, folks. There seems to be a lot of streaming tonight. Kirsty, thanks so much for that message. Apologies for that. I'm not sure what's happening. It seems to happen when I go onto YouTube. Hopefully it will sort itself out. Maybe we'll do audio only for a little bit. Surprise, surprise, the unexpected slap between the thighs. We keep drilling, but no thought to appropriate technology to replace it. Yes, it's this is a so the story I wanted to talk about here is you can extract more oil and gas from the North Sea, and you're going to hear a lot about how the UK's the solution must be to extract more oil and gas. The problem with that is that there are two problems. First of all, the reserves that are available are more expensive to extract from. So there is oil and gas there, but it's expensive to extract from there. So many businesses don't really want to touch it. It's not feasible for them to do so. And something you definitely don't hear a lot about is subsidies. So when the Tories say, well, we have all this oil and gas available, and if we extract it, we can collect tax revenue on that. And that's true, but it would actually have to. The buffering isn't terrible, just a second or two, but pretty regular. So we can. Thank you very much for your patience, guys. I honestly don't know what the problem here is, if it's YouTube or my connection, but I think it's Boris didn't like graphs. But it's the subsidies is another thing. So the subsidy is, in a sense, you're paying a company to extract oil and gas from the North Sea, and these companies should be doing it. You should actually have it. It's YouTube, okay. You should actually be able to. There should be a sovereign wealth fund where the revenues from this go into a wealth fund for a rainy day for society, or have a national company doing this. Now that would be very expensive if you were to nationalize oil and gas, but I get buffered every day. I hope that's in a positive way. No, I'm joking. Hit the like button and share other. Going back to this. So the issue here is not just that the oil and gas have to be extracted. It's expensive to extract, but there's also subsidies necessary in order to facilitate that extraction.
That stuff's already gone. But there's still some, the red parts here and the purple parts that's left. Okay, just to make this really clear, what we'll do is we'll just take one slice of this. We'll take the latest year, so 2024, and just show you the big picture. How much gas is there in the North Sea? Well, look, that's the stuff we've already used. That's gone. This is the stuff that's left. And that constitutes about 80% of all of the gas resources. So 80% of the North Sea gas, at least as far as we know what's under there. I mean, there could be more exploration, there could be more discoveries, you just never know. But as far as we know in this mature field, 80% has gone. Roughly 20% is left. But here's where things get interesting. Okay, of that 20%, some of it is easy. So this isn't what's known as reserves. And some of this stuff, it's fields where there's the oil, you just haven't pumped it, or the gas rather, you just haven't pumped it. And when I talk about oil and gas, usually you find oil and gas in kind of similar fields. So some of it is easy. It's there, you just haven't pumped it yet. Some of it is harder, it takes more work to get out. And resources, there's this whole kind of difference between reserves and resources. We won't go into that, but the broad point is, the further you get here, the further into resources, that's difficult stuff. So easy.
And I think this is a fundamental point. That's the difficult stuff. It's more expensive to extract that type of oil. So the companies, if they, I believe what the UK government did was they ended a lot of these contracts because they'd end up having to compensate these companies, give them money in order to extract the oil and the gas. So they'd have to subsidize it. So they said, look, it's not worth subsidizing it. We want to move away from this type of resource, from this fossil fuel. So I think what's the problem here is that you have politicians who are just putting out this idea that, hey, it's really easy. We have loads of oil and gas there. We can just extract it and we can use it for ourselves. But there's another point, of course, that I keep talking about. It's sold on the international market. So even if you extracted all of it, even if it was easy to extract, a lot of it, most of it would be sold on the international market. Now, the government can draw revenue from that, but it doesn't bring down the price unless you flooded the market with it, but there isn't that much available. So humans have to switch to clean energy. We have no choice in the future. Yes, there has to be a move away from oil and gas. Look, from a strategic point of view, it makes sense to move away, because even if you can extract more oil and gas from the North Sea, it's sold on the international market. That's the most important. And please, if you're speaking to somebody about this, raise that point. It's sold on the international market. So even if you extract more, it's not going to bring down the price of gas for ordinary people, because ordinary people will be buying it from a distributor who's buying it on the international market. The only way it comes down for ordinary people is if the global price comes down. Now, you could say, well, why don't we just extract oil for ourselves and just keep it for ourselves? Well, then you won't have it sold on the international market then. And you're not going to be able to, you'd have to fill up a reserve or something like that. But the government doesn't have the ability to do that, or the will to do it, because they'd end up buying a load of oil and gas at a very high price because it wouldn't be sold on the international market. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat again. The North Sea is a mature basin, and production peaked in 1999. Most estimates say that there's 10 to 15 years worth of resources left there to be exploited. It doubles if we include potential exploits. Thanks for that. And this is and thanks very much for that explainer, because it's really important to understand that the resources available are getting smaller and smaller. There's less available, which makes it more expensive to extract, which means that the companies who are doing the extraction will demand a higher price. Or they'll say, look, we're not going to bother. So the government will have to step in and compensate them in order to extract that. Once again, these companies, these massive oil companies, are making huge profits, and part of the time we're giving them money to do so. Once again, thanks so much, Gareth, for that explainer. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our next story, which, of course, is the economy. So how are things with the economy? Well, there's a war on, if you didn't know. But the government is in a bit of bother, and I keep saying that if they don't deal with the cost of living crisis, they're going to be in serious trouble. So this is about the cost of borrowing. So the government, let me bring this up a little bit so you guys can see it a bit better. So cost of UK borrowing at 18-year high over energy bill fears. The cost of UK government borrowing has surpassed the level seen at the mini budget and hit a high last seen in 2008 during the financial crisis. Shock at the prospect of consumers paying £332 more on their energy bills from July has sharpened fears over how much inflation and the overall rate of price rises will go up, as some economists envisage circumstances where inflation could 3 interest rate hikes this year. If they come to pass, these hikes expected in April, July and November will bring the base borrowing cost to 4.5%. So which of course will have a damaging impact on the economy because it's more expensive to borrow. So businesses in particular, will hold off from borrowing for investment. The government's borrowing cost, as well as news this morning that borrowing cost the state $5 billion more in February than it did the year earlier, led investors to demand more to lend to the government. So it's more expensive for the government to fund its public services because a lot of this is funded through borrowing. Now, the government has said that they don't want to borrow more unless it's for capital investment. But if the cost of borrowing goes up, it means Max and the Buffers sing the UBI tune. Don't tell me it's buffering again. Polanski for Prime Minister. Universal basic income. We'll get to something like that in just a moment, where Bernie Sanders has a conversation with an AI. But it's this is concerning because the government say that, look, we want to borrow for capital investment, but if it costs more to borrow, then it's likely the government will not borrow as much because they're afraid of how much it's going to cost. So this will mean, well, you raise taxes either, but the government don't want to raise taxes because they said that they want to stick to their rules. Maybe Max can do a live stream on it. Yes, I have to do a live stream on UBI. Well, I did an interview with a guy on UBI, but maybe we could do a full live stream on UBI, and I can put together some videos that we can watch. If you're interested, I know some of you are, so let's hope that a good few of you, we can do a UBI special. Sweeney for President of Scotland. I think Scotland will become independent at some stage. So tax on the rich, the government don't want to do that because, remember, Labour are very rich people, and very rich people don't like paying taxes. So if you're not going to borrow more and you're not going to increase taxes, well, the other two alternatives are quantitative easing, which is basically printing more money, which the government could do, but then this will result in higher inflation, or austerity, so cuts to public services. And governments prefer to go down the austerity route than they want to go down the tax rising route, because for political reasons it's easier to punch poor people than to punch rich people because rich people have bodyguards around them, so you're not able to punch rich people, but you can punch poor people because they have nobody to defend them, including politicians on many occasions. So this is concerning. Of course, the solution here is to end the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz by diplomatic means. I think that we'll eventually have to do something like this. Now, I think what we're going to see in the meanwhile is countries, NATO members in particular, are going to stop drone attacks and take out launchers, missile launchers, and any sort of missile launchers in Iran. So I think we're going to see perhaps an expansion of this war in Iran. And of course, Iran is still equipped to respond, and it has proxies in the Middle East who can respond as well. And all you need is a few odd drones or missiles hitting ships in the strait to bring the whole thing crashing down again. So I think this is going to be, unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but I have a terrible feeling that this war is going to go on for a long period of time, which means that ordinary people are going to suffer more than anyone else. Ukraine is attacking Iran now. So Ukraine has provided assistance to drone operators in the Gulf to help them bring down Iranian drones, because a lot of these Iranian drones were being given to Russia to carry out strikes on Ukraine previously. Ukraine is probably the most advanced army or military force in Europe. Really, they have the most advanced technologies at the moment. They also have the biggest army, I believe. I don't know if it's Poland who have the biggest army, or they have the biggest army. It's one massive balls up after another. Literally can't catch a break since 2010. Yeah, it feels every year there's something. Well, the power that be really hates you, Max, buffering. Apologies once again for this buffering. Let's move on, if the powers that be permit. Let's go to Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders is somebody I greatly admire, and he sat down with Claude, which is an AI chatbot from Anthropic. Let me see if this loads properly. Try and bring it up. Okay, so this should be okay. Hopefully it doesn't buffer too much. So, as I said, Bernie sat down with Claude, which is an AI bot, and he asked it some questions about security.
Claude, this is Senator Bernie Sanders. I have been taking a hard look at how AI impacts American society in terms of economics and job loss, in terms of the mental health of our kids, and impact of AI on privacy. I want to know among other things, just how much of the information that AI collects is being used, and what would surprise the American people in terms of knowing how that information is collected?
Yeah, that's the thing that would probably shock most Americans. Companies are collecting data from everywhere. Your browsing history, your location, what you buy, what you search for, even how long you pause on a web page. Then they're feeding all of that into AI systems that create incredibly detailed profiles about you. What would surprise people is how little they actually consented to and how little they understand about it. Most people click agree on terms of service without reading them, and they have no idea that their data is being combined with thousands of other data points to build a picture of who they are. And then that AI uses those profiles to decide what ads you see, what prices you're shown, even what information gets prioritized in your social media feed. It's all happening in the background, invisible and largely unregulated.
I think most Americans would know the answer to this, but why is all of this information being collected? What's the goal here?
Money, Senator. It's fundamentally about profit. Companies collect all this data because AI allows them to turn it into valuable insights. They can predict what you'll buy, target you with ads that are more likely to work, charge different prices to different people based on what they know about you. Advertisers pay premium prices for access to these detailed profiles because they're incredibly effective at manipulating consumer behavior. And it's not...
Although this is nothing new, this has been around since social media. So social media was very good, as we've seen when it came to Brexit. It was very good at convincing people to vote a particular way. It was good at tapping into people's fears and their concerns and weaponizing that. And AI is very good at doing that as well. It wants you to remain on the platform. It's a bit like AI. Sorry, it's a bit like social media, but turned up to 11, where it's able to pander to you, to be sycophantic and ask you to give over more and more information about yourself.
Just about selling you stuff either. Political campaigns use the same AI and data to figure out how to persuade you, which messages will work on you specifically. Data brokers buy and sell information about millions of Americans without their knowledge. The bottom line is that your attention, your behavior, your choices, all of that has become a commodity to be bought and sold.
All right, Claude, you mentioned politics. Well, I am in politics, and I'm deeply concerned about the future of American democracy. Elaborate a little bit on how AI and profiling...
That's a critical point, Senator. AI profiling poses a real threat to democracy because it enables micro-targeting at a scale we've never seen before. A campaign or political actor can use AI to identify voters based on incredibly specific vulnerabilities. Maybe someone who's financially...
Exactly. So what I can do is if I have a political party, what I can do is I can use the AI to sift through all of the details of the data that it would be too difficult or it'd be expensive to have a team look at. You can get the AI to do it for you for free, basically. And it's a very powerful tool, and you can create propaganda for different groups in society, tailor-made for them, and the AI can facilitate that. Capitalists doing the thanks, Gary. Yes, very good.
Financially anxious or feels isolated or distrusts institutions, and then serve them precisely crafted messages designed to exploit those vulnerabilities. Unlike traditional political messaging, where everyone sees roughly the same ad, AI allows campaigns to show completely different narratives to different groups.
Now, look, I want to say something very positive about this. While Bernie Sanders is presenting this, and rightly so, he's presenting it in a very negative light, a very concerning light. You know what's interesting about this is that the AI is not lying to him. It's not saying, no, don't worry, everything's fine. There's nothing to be worried about. We're only here to help and stuff like that. It's actually been extremely honest. And this is something, it's a double-edged sword, of course. The AI can be used. And I think I keep coming back to this point that AI is a bit like fire. Fire can be used to heat your house, or it can be used to cook your meals, but it can also be used to burn down the forest or burn down a village or burn down your home. So fire is a double-edged sword. You know, it's a knife can be used to stab somebody, or it can be used to spread jam on a piece of bread. But it's the same with AI. It's a tool. At the moment, it's a tool. Okay, it's a bit more. It's a very powerful tool, a bit more than a tool. But it's we have to look at it from both the positive and the negative. And my only criticism of Bernie Sanders here is that he's viewing it more from the negative than the positive. There was a story this week, I think I covered it on the last live stream, where a guy who had a dog with cancer was able to use AI to reach out to a laboratory, give them a protein that exists within the cancer of the dog, and he was able to create a vaccine for that dog using the data that he discovered. And he's not even a scientist. He was able to create all of this data. He could hand it to a research lab, and they were able to create a vaccine for him. Now, this is a very niche case. It's not something that can be rolled out straight away, but it did demonstrate how somebody who has no scientific knowledge was able to create a vaccine in a positive way to help cure his dog. AI makes great funny videos, Max. There is the slop, of course, but I think we have to look at it from both angles. There are major dangers with it, in the same way as the internet. The internet, when it first came out, was both a positive and a negative.
One voter sees a message about protecting jobs. Another sees one stoking fear about immigration, and they're living in different information worlds. That fragmenting of shared reality undermines the democratic process itself. And it gets worse if bad actors, foreign governments for instance, get access to these profiles and use them to sow division and manipulate elections. The American people deserve to know they're being targeted this way, and they deserve real protections.
Well, I'm going to get to the issue of protections in a minute.
I just saw a comment here. I love using ChatGPT, querying my home. Okay, I wanted to replace a car battery, and I couldn't remember if you remove the negative first or the positive first. And I asked ChatGPT, and it told me. I took a picture actually of the inside of the car under the bonnet, and I asked it, which one do I remove? And it told me the order. I don't remember the order, but it told me the order, and it was right. So it's a very useful tool. Manuals, instead of storing manuals in a box in your attic or whatever that would get all dusty and you may never use, you can use ChatGPT to access exactly the model that you need of printer or appliance, whatever it is. So it is extremely useful. It's a very powerful tool. I'm sorry, but it's like every tool, it can be misused.
But let me ask you this. People tell AI agents like you, Claude, a lot of personal information. And some people have said...
Max is maxing out. Apologies, guys. I don't know why this buffering is so bad tonight. The problem is that you cannot be sure it's the truth. That's why it's important to cross-reference it with, do a Google search. If it's something important for you, if it's something trivial... who was the actor, what was the soundtrack of this movie, or what's the name of this song or something, is not so important. But if it's something really important, do cross-reference it with something else. Don't just go with the first answer you get. In the same way as everything, if you watch a YouTube video and somebody tells you should do something, check it with somebody else. Always have a second opinion. And the same with AI. If it's something really important for your life, don't just rely on the first answer you get. Check it with another tool, or do a Google search something. You get an AI response sometimes automatically. So Google is AI now, so hard to check. Although it gives you a summary. There are what's called hallucinations. It's going to make mistakes. But I think for the most part, it's pretty good. It's pretty right on the money.
Their AI knows more about them than their spouses do. At the same time, companies are using this information to, quote unquote, train new models. How can we trust AI companies will protect our privacy when they use people's personal information to make money?
That's the core contradiction right there, Senator. You're asking people to trust companies whose entire business model depends on extracting value from your personal data. There's an inherent conflict of interest. An AI company says they'll protect your privacy while simultaneously training their models on that same personal information to build better products they can sell or monetize. How do you trust that? You really can't, not without strong legal safeguards. Right now, there's almost no accountability. Companies can collect your data, use it however they want, and face minimal consequences if things go wrong.
Now, it's also possible that the AI here was primed. And what I mean by that is when you want the AI to react in a particular way, you wanted to give you wanted to give you scientific data, or if you want to give you medical data, medical response or something like that, you can prime it. So you tell it, act like a doctor, act like a lawyer, act like an accountant. And then you ask your question. This is really important for people who are not familiar that much with AI tools. It's important to give it a role. It acts better. It gives you better responses because it acts in a very general way. That's why we tend to see a lot of brittle responses or a lot of mistakes. You say, hey, I asked it this very simple thing and it came back with absolute rubbish because it's trying to answer a question. Maybe it doesn't know the full context. So the more information you give it, the better the context, and the role you give it is really important, and you're more likely to get a better response that way. It doesn't mean you're always going to get the perfect response, but the chances of errors is reduced because you have to think about it like, imagine you walked into a room and there was a group of people there and they asked you, what do you think? And you're like, about what? No, just give us your answer. Well, a normal person would say, well, I can't give an answer because I don't know. But imagine if you were forced to give an answer. Well, it's highly likely that the answer you'd give would be wrong because you don't have the context. So it's not it's not a perfect analogy, but it is a bit of an analogy to how we treat the information when it comes to AIs. We don't give it enough context, and that's some of the reasons why it comes back with really weird answers. Hey LLM, can a tourniquet be safely used on the neck? Yes, my sweet. Yes, they have been trying to put in more safeguards there, more guardrails to protect from people using it the wrong way. It's less likely in the later versions, in the more recent versions, but at the earlier versions, yes, there were significant problems with people asking it very simple things and getting very dark answers. It is what humans feed it. Yes, for the most part, yes. Old version, not old enough apparently, hat-wise. Anyway, moving on. It's interesting, but unfortunately, I think the only real problem here that I find with the video is that he has approached it in a more negative way. He doesn't talk about the benefits of AI when it comes to, processing huge amounts of medical data, for example, to benefit humanity. So, how medical staff would be able to access huge amounts of information regarding their patient in order to understand the entire history. The AI could go through the entire history and say, I remember back in 2010, the patient, the doctor wouldn't be able to remember that, or the patient may not even remember something that happened to them some years ago. So it's really important that we have all this information and it's able to understand the context as well. Well, remember, you had this medication back then and you took this medication. Why did you take information quickly as opposed to a doctor having to go through the reports trying to figure out what the hell went wrong or why the patient stopped taking a particular form of medication. So there's a huge speed there, exactly, light speed tractor, yet even the terms guardrails should ring alarm bells, to be frank. No, I agree that we need to have these guardrails. It's, in a sense, the more horror stories we hear about AI, in a sense, it's actually a positive thing because it means something was caught. Okay, we've known about it, so we can have a fix. Imagine if the very first cars didn't have seatbelts. Of course, they didn't have seatbelts. And then we never heard about car accidents, going right through windscreens. But then we did hear about it, and then we said, well, we need to have some sort of safety measure in place so that fewer people are killed in these accidents or fewer people go through windscreens. So it's really important that we do find these mistakes, that we can learn from them, we can fix them today, which is maybe a bit terrifying, can be mitigated for the future. I'm not saying that everything is going to be great. I'm really concerned about where this is going. There's a real risk that we will lose control, that it will be in control of us. We will become, there are two ways this can go. It can go the way of, well, we lose control and we become the equivalent of house cats. It gives us everything we need, gives us food, it gives us play, it gives us comfort, but we have no control over the situation. In the same way as in most cases, your house cat has no control over your life. You're in control. You should be in control of the house cat's life. The other alternative is more dystopian, where we don't have control, but we're not like house cats. We're more like prisoners, and it's a living hell. That's the alternative, and let's hope that it's more house cat than living hell. So guys, we're also at the end of the stream. I just wanted to cover this final story here, which is a little bit more lighthearted before we have our one for the road. So Donald Trump, 200 years old. Can you imagine? So have a listen to this.
He served 3 presidents.
We can hardly hear him. Unfortunately, I have to turn up the volume on Donald Trump because he's very low.
He served 3 presidents. He said, you had Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of Barack Hussein Obama? You had Obama. I didn't want to talk about Biden, but he said, and you had Bush. You had young Bush, I call him, young Bush. I was not a fan, but that's all right. But the press asked him, who was the healthiest of the 3? Doc Ronnie, stand up, Doc Ronnie. There's a big deal. Took a lot of heat for this. They said, no, most guys would say, well, we don't want to talk about that. They said, who's the healthiest of the 3? He said, President Donald J. Trump by far. If he didn't eat junk food, he'd live to 200 years old, he said.
It's like, what the fuck? Donald Trump is the healthiest president of all time. It's like Donald Trump is the strongest president of all time. Donald Trump is the smartest president of all time. Donald Trump is the Kim Jong-un of all time. The American version of Kim Jong-un. I can imagine somebody could convince Donald Trump that he invented the bicycle. He's like, I remember inventing the bicycle, and electricity, and the internet, and the light bulb, and and it was the best light bulb. It was the brightest light bulb. No, I have to do this thing, the invisible accordion. Is he actually real? If he didn't eat so much junk food, he'd live to 200. Like, there's nobody living to 200. Like, what is the limit for humanity? I think somebody's lived to 120. Is that maybe somebody who lived on rice and salmon, like wild organic freshly caught salmon and rice. That's what they lived on, and they lived to the age of 120 in Osaka, Japan, or maybe someone in Sardinia in Italy. I know in Sardinia it's very rural, and of course they have access to grappa. If you don't know what grappa is, do check it out. A little bit of grappa every day keeps the heart healthy, allegedly. But it's Donald Trump is the picture of health, yes.
And I love this guy, and he then left and he ran. He was an admiral, and he then left, and he was a White House doctor, a very respected one. He saved a lot of lives. He was a great doctor. People don't realize that. And he then left, and he said, sir, I'd like to run for Congress. I said, you've never done it before. You won't be able to pull it off. In a very, very all-Trump district, there were 28 people running. Man was retiring. He's been there for years. And I said, Ron, I don't know. It's going to be...
Okay. God. Grappa is brutal, Max. Fire water. It is. I'm not a fan of it myself, but it's meant to be good for you in small doses. In Africa, 120 years old. In Africa, there's somebody who's 120 years old. Okay. Diary of Thomas. Yes. I hope you're talking about Donald Trump here and not and not Grappa. Gotta love America. It's been nothing but entertainment. Yes, but I think we've had enough of entertainment for a millennia. Okay, so perhaps we can go back to something a bit more serious for a bit. Like, boring is good. That's probably why I think the next president of the United States will be Gavin Newsom. Not a huge fan of Gavin Newsom, but, you know, a potted plant. No, the devil himself would be better than Donald Trump. Okay, potted plant, bloody hell. That'd be wonderful. Yes, you did exactly the right thing now. Okay, stopping Donald Trump. It's not true, Max. A friend of mine from the States let his fat orange feline run the house one day, and now he's the president of the United States. Feline. Oops, I mean felon. Thanks, Gareth. Yes, we should have put the cat in charge. Oh my goodness, times would have been so much different. It feels like we're living. I keep saying it feels like we're living in a weird simulation. That there's some alien teenager who's going like, hey, let's make the orange one president for a while and see how it works. Oh look, the whole world is imploding. No, better let's press the reset button after all of this. I hope that's not the case. Anyway, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you to the moderators for doing a wonderful job, and thanks to everyone who sent a super chat. I greatly appreciate it, as always. Thanks so much for that. I will be on back again on Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. So I hope you will enjoy this before we go. So it's a funny one.
Welcome to Question Time.
The audio's a little bit too high. Let me bring it down.
On the panel, Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, who is also MP for Clacton. Controversial Reform UK party leader Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, the toad-faced MP and Reform UK leader. Human Toby Jug and general shit-stirrer Nigel Farage. And finally, Nigel Farage, national arsehole and leader of Reform UK.
Thank you, Count Binface. So, guys, have a great weekend. I will see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.